Hi everyone, Mark West here. Before I tell you a little bit about my leadership philosophy and my leadership plan, I just want to give you a little background. I am an elementary art teacher in the Central Bucks School District in Bucks County, PA. So my philosophy and my plan all kind of come back to that, what I look for in a leader from a teacher, things that I would look for in a leader from my administration, and things that my students might look for in me. So my philosophy stems from that, and then also all the actions and goals in my leadership plan come back to that as well. So my leadership philosophy stems from community. The idea that we cannot do everything on our own or everything alone. So there's a couple different components that I think kind of factor into that. The first thing is alienation. Alienation's not good because if you're trying to work as a community, it doesn't allow you to. And then the other thing is goal setting. So although it's important to have individual goals, when I think about leadership philosophy, it comes back to that community. So the values and the goals should be something that's agreed upon by the community. So when I talk about the rest of my philosophy, that's kind of the background for it. When I think about types of leaders, for me personally, what would fit best in my style and what I do is servant, authentic leadership. I view myself as somebody that's serving the community and serving my students. I'm transmitting skills and knowledge to my students, but I also am serving them by introducing them to culture and different ways that they can experience culture. For my students to kind of take part in that, obviously they need to feel that I'm invested in it. So that's why I feel that authentic leadership is important. As a teacher, especially as an art teacher, for me it's important to get to know my students. So it's more than just making things and creating things. I'm trying to build relationships with them and show them that I care about what I do and I take pride in what I do, but also to show them that it's important to learn these things and to experience these things. For my leadership plan, I broke it up into 3 different components. The first one's open communication. The second one is continual professional growth. And then the third component is strategic future planning. So the first part of open communication for me is just by having open office hours. I think it's important to give people, which for me could be my students or my colleagues, an opportunity to reach me if they need to. I'm a very tactile and face-to-face person, so sometimes just sending an email is not good for me. So I like to provide other people that opportunity to have that face-to-face interaction. It shows that you care, and it shows that you're willing to give them an opportunity to hear what they have to say. As far as timeline goes for this, I would say this should be something that's ongoing and constant. So whenever it's needed, it can be done. Because of the coronavirus, which we're all working through right now, my office hours are strictly digital. So I could have a conference call with somebody, a phone call. We can work through email if we need to, but on my teacher website, I have my office hours posted so that anyone can reach me during those times. All right, anonymous communication, why that is important to me. Personally, I'm actually somebody that tends to be really shy, especially if I don't know someone. So when I first meet a person, it might be difficult for me to express my opinions or to express my ideas. So the idea of an anonymous communication is helpful in kind of fixing that problem. One way that this can be achieved is there can be a communication box, and it can be in a central location. If it's in my classroom and somebody comes in to drop their communication in there, then I'm going to see who it is that's doing it. So I would say a central location outside of my room where someone can write down an idea, a comment, or a concern on a piece of paper, and they can slip it in the box, and then I would review that. Obviously, this works better for face-to-face. So as far as a timeline goes, I would say if we're back to face-to-face education in the fall, that's when I would implement this. Student check-ins are really important to me because it allows me to kind of gauge where the kids are at in their projects. I only implement or introduce 1 or 2 steps in the kids' art projects every week, but sometimes some students are able to finish it, some students are not able to finish it. So they're really all over the place in where they're at with their assignments. So those check-ins are really good because it allows them to check in with me and voice any concerns or questions that they may have. And then it also allows me to check in with them and to see kind of where they need some improvement. Now, as far as timeline goes, I only see the kids 1 day a week for 40 minutes. And actually, right now, during coronavirus, it's 1 day a week for 20 minutes. So I think that doing a check-in or a formal check-in every single week might be kind of a waste, because with 20 or 40 minutes, it doesn't give the students that much time to actually work. So I think every other week or every few weeks is good. If we were face-to-face, I would probably do a check-in every week or every other week. Collaboration is huge for me. I'm the only art teacher in my building, so it's difficult sometimes to be able to collaborate with people because there's nobody there. But I do reach out to my other art teacher colleagues that are in the other schools, and we do talk a lot. So it's helpful because I can't do everything myself. I might be stuck on something, or I may not have an idea for how to teach a certain idea or concept that is kind of new or original. So having that back and forth with other people allows you to kind of keep things fresh and new. For my students, it's also important to collaborate because a lot of them have the same problems that I have, where we might start a project and even though I show them the steps, they still don't really know what to do. So having that brainstorm time or that time to bounce ideas off of each other is really helpful for them. So as far as timeline goes, for me personally, I like to be collaborating all the time. I check in with people every single day. But as far as my art colleagues, I probably would say I check in with them at least once a week just to kind of see how things are doing. And then for my students, I like to give them a collaboration time for each stage of a project. So if there's 4 or 5 steps to a project, I like to give them 4 or 5 opportunities to collaborate with their peers and bounce ideas back and forth. Professional growth and professional development is really important to me because I feel that every time that I learn something, right afterwards something new is coming along and kind of improving it. So we should always be seeking out new ideas and concepts to make us better. I feel that as the leader, I should be presenting a lot of that information to my followers. I'm kind of showing them the new things that are kind of arising as we're learning together. So I would say about 50% of professional development should be run by the leader. That gives the followers and your colleagues new ideas, new things to talk about, new things to implement in their classrooms. And I think that this should happen monthly. It could be something small, like me sending out a quick video showing everyone something new that I learned, or it could be a workshop. The other 50% of professional development within our local community, I think, should be performed or implemented by the followers. This does a couple of things. It brings everything back to community and shows that everyone has a voice and everyone brings something to the table. And it also allows the followers to start to take on their own leadership roles. So I would say a couple of times a year, or every time that someone has a great idea, we can bring this up as something for professional development. But it's really important for people to have a voice. If they don't have a voice, they're not going to have a conversation with you, and it's all about building that community and having that conversation. Just as we can learn from people within our own community, we can also learn a lot from people outside of our local community. So I think it's very important to attend workshops and seminars and conferences outside of your local community, because someone in a different location or in a different environment might be doing something awesome that we might not think about in our environment because it's not really local to us, but we can still implement it in our environment. So I think that attending some kind of conference or workshops a couple times a year is appropriate. If something pops up randomly and it's worthwhile, then by all means I would say it's important to go for it. So there doesn't necessarily have to be a specific timeline, like every month or every 2 months you should be attending a workshop. I just think a couple times a year when something relevant pops up, then it's important. So my third component is based on a couple of my identified strengths, which were strategic and futuristic. And that's great because they kind of work perfectly together in thinking about strategic future planning. in my mind, I'm always kind of thinking about how is what I'm doing now affecting the future. So I've decided to break this up into a couple of different actions and thinking about future planning by developing personal goals. So at the beginning of every school year, I think it's important for me as a leader, for me as a teacher, to develop or identify something that I want to improve. But it's more than just saying, okay, I want to get better at this. At that point, once I identify the goal, I want to start to strategically list the ways that I'm going to achieve that goal. Obviously, this changes over time. So every month, I should be reflecting, or really every week, I should be reflecting and thinking about, did this work? Did this not work? What do I need to change? How can I make this better? How can I improve this? So that's the first part. On top of that, I think it's important to have community goals because we're, again, bringing everything back to the greater good. So I think quarterly there should be some meetings where we have a community event or a community group get together. That could be teachers and principals or administration. We could include some students. We could include some parents in there as well. But we should come together and identify what are the needs, what are the things that we are looking for, and how can we make them better. And then every couple of months get together again, evaluate our progress, make changes, and go from there. So that's pretty much my leadership plan and philosophy. I tried to keep it somewhat simple because I wanted to make it something that I could implement pretty much immediately and then also see some results from. So if you have some feedback for me, I would appreciate it if you could comment. And I look forward to reading or viewing all of your leadership plans as well. Take care.